So again, hello and welcome to Customer Experience and Social Distancing, how to deliver the best experience for today's home buyer. My name is Melissa Garland. I am the Vice President for Client Development with Atlas RTX. We are a web chatbot company, and we've been hosting a series of webinars over the past month on the changes that home builders are facing in the time of coronavirus. These changes are not insignificant. We talked initially about the sales process, we talked about marketing, and today we're moving to the overall customer experience. And I am excited today to welcome two industry professionals to this discussion. Today we have Jennifer Cooper with us, who has served as the head of marketing for Oakwood Homes. She has earned an NAHB Gold and Silver Award as the National Marketing Professional of the Year in both 2018 and 19. She's won numerous other awards throughout her career for masterplan branding. Hello, Jennifer, and welcome.
Hi.
And we also have Leah Fellows, who's a national online sales counselor trainer for the home building industry. She's implemented OSC programs for builders across the country and is a member of the Professional Women in Building Council and the Sales and Marketing Council, both locally and nationally. Hello, Leah, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So today we're structuring our conversation around the home buyer's experience across their journey, from inquiry all the way to move-in. As we are all very well aware, this crisis has forced builders to consider significant changes in everything they do, from communications to technology. So today, as we look across that journey, we want to see and identify and offer up to our listeners today some of the things they can do to really make today's home buying experience the best it can be. So with that in mind, let's jump right into some of our questions. We're going to kind of start with the pre-sale experience, with the stuff that is the first thing that customers engage and experience from a home builder, right? So at the very beginning of the customer experience is the brand that home builders are portraying to the market. Right now, customers are expecting empathy and transparency. So Jennifer, how are some of the best home builders that you've seen doing this effectively? And what changes are you seeing them make in order to create the right brand impression with buyers today?
Sure. The biggest thing that brands are doing right now, and this is in our industry and across industry, is really just acknowledging what's happening, not sweeping it under the rug, not going into a status quo mode of what we've always done, but really acknowledging at the forefront what people are faced with, because we're a consumer of all things, like I like to say. So having empathy is absolutely is the first thing we have to do. We have to think about that customer experience and think about the timing of our response. And so I think the brands that are going to come out of this stronger, I think a lot of brands have the opportunity to pivot right now. What you stand for, I challenge all brands right now to look and say, what was our vision and our mission, and how were we servicing customers? It is not about our product. It is about our customer and our service and their pain points. And so how can we really relook at those service aspects of what we stand for and start to pivot those? And the good brands are embracing this opportunity to change, or maybe improve areas where they were weaker, where they were more product focused in the beginning.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And of course, branding is more than just a logo, right? More than just a positioning statement. It shows up, website, email. So what are some of the messages that you're seeing home builders use now that are most effective?
Sure. I will say, in some of my analysis and just watching what the industry is doing as a whole, as a consultant these days, is that some of the national builders are putting out very canned, hey, we're responding, we have new processes, because they actually have a lot of reach, a lot of areas they have to reach. But some of the smaller, more private builders, like CBH Homes, for example, does a phenomenal job where they are just so transparent upon it the minute you open up their website, and they're like, hey, there's a different buying experience here, and we're going to walk you through it in 3 easy steps. As much as buyers can, our home buying journey is so long. I mean, if we picked it apart, it's hundreds of steps, really. But if we can chunk it down into 3 easy steps, or 3 easy steps at a time, and make it look comfortable, easy. We have your back. We fought through this pandemic. We got this. Being at the forefront. So CBH is one that I saw that really did a good job. And then not taking all of your marketing off of autopilot. And again, perception is everything. If I see ads in my social feed or even digital ads or communications that were produced 3 or 4 months ago, and it's the same old message, that's going to say you're either ignoring it or you're not, this was planned and you're not thinking about what's in it for me now or what am I worried about now. So really going back again, that's that scraping your marketing plans or communications plans, saying how are we changing this? Be transparent, put it at the front. And definitely I would encourage other builders to look at how CBH Homes is doing it, because I looked at about 20 different sites over the last couple of weeks and I didn't see anybody adjust so quickly to say, hey, we're in this game for you and you can still buy a home even today as the way the world is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you mentioned scraping your campaigns and taking things off of autopilot. Are there any other changes that you've seen or rather that you're recommending to website or marketing campaigns? Is it changing the channels they're using or changing their budget directions or?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole host of things and you could dig into each segment very uniquely, but at a high level, I would hope that all of the marketing professionals out there are saying, where can I spend the best use of my dollars when I'm reaching people who are 90% in their homes? Maybe they're driving out to restaurants. So there is some opportunity for some radio, but having up that digital, having up your retargeting strategy, how often are you going back to your A, B's, and C's and uniquely reaching out to them to understand where they are in the buying process? There's never been a better time to learn about our buyers, to know our buyers, and craft very specific message for each buyer at different times in the segment. So there is so much data gathering out there. It's really crazy. So I would just say, really reevaluate where you're spending the money, make sure you're using the right tools. If you don't have the right tools, like all of where I think we're going to talk about tools later on in here, so I don't want to repeat too much, but really analyze where you're spending. If you have a bunch of money in billboards and other things that you could take down because nobody's going to see them right now, that should be evaluated. And then again, the message, how easy is it to buy a home right now? The biggest thing we need to let people know, we're here, you can still buy a home, and we're going to make it easy. Those are 3 things along all your messaging, regardless of what tool you're using online.
That's fantastic. That's really great. And actually, I do want to make a quick side note. I forgot to mention to viewers that should you wish to ask us any questions throughout the course of this conversation, which will be 45 minutes in total, there is a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to add any questions there and we will answer them as we go. If we don't get to them in the course of our discussion today, in the 45 minutes, we'll stick around and answer some afterwards. So again, please do feel free to throw any questions our way. So Leah, I wanted to turn to the online sales consultant world that you have been such a part of throughout your career. The OSC is an important member of the marketing and sales teams, most marketing and sales teams. They're not new members. We didn't just invent them. They've been around for a while, right? So it's kind of funny, right? As we go digital and somebody says online, well, we must have just added. No, we've had these guys for a long time, but they're taking on a more important role, I think, now as all of our home builder sales and marketing is so digitally driven, right? So I was wondering if you might talk to us about how the role of the OSC has changed, maybe more specifically in the current crisis time, and what role they play in the customer experience.
Well, for anyone that has online sales counselors or knows online sales counselors, I mean, it is funny you say it's not new. It's not new. It's been around for about 2 decades now, almost. But for some people, they still go, what's an online sales counselor when you start talking about it? And these people always have been the face of your website. They should have been the face of your website. Now, not every builder agrees about that. Not everyone puts them as the forefront of their website. And so in some ways, I feel like their role hasn't changed with this crisis. It's just become more, the whole company and people have become more aware that they exist. And what is happening with their role is that in a lot of places, and we know regionally, everything is different, right? In some places, it's still almost business as usual. In some places, it's appointment only. In some places, you can't even set an appointment in person, so you're doing virtual tours. So a lot more traffic is being driven to the online sales counselors now than ever before. We always have said that almost 100% of people begin their search online, but that didn't always mean that all 100% of those people actually chatted with the online sales counselor before they went to visit a community. So it's important now, especially as we are driving that traffic toward virtual appointments, that the OSCs, again, kind of back to what Jennifer said, having an empathetic and understanding message. We've always said they're there to build rapport. They're there to give that quick, personalized follow-up in the beginning when people ask for their assistance. And they're not salespeople. You know, the whole title sales in there can sometimes make people think, oh, well, I don't want to talk to that person because they're going to try to sell me something. But they really are there to help guide you, help you through the process, understand the builder, understand the building process. And so being more of that guide and more of that person discovering, like Jennifer said, the pain points, because I'm always teaching online sales counselors, your goal is to find out why someone is moving, what's their pain point, why are they moving, because your goal is really to pass that information on to the site agent in the form of an appointment. So they're not selling anything but appointments. And so in that respect, it hasn't changed, but the volume has definitely increased for some online sales counselors. And for others, the volume has decreased, even though we see website traffic up. So basically, I think their role is just becoming more important. And those builders that already had them in place are pivoting and really saying, okay, how can we really utilize this role to its fullest if they hadn't been?
Yeah.
Or how do we assist these folks that are feeling overwhelmed? And I think
and it sounds, I would imagine today, the OSC is actually probably the first one addressing the question about, you know, coronavirus related questions, right?
Exactly. And that's why the messaging, and back to, you know, Jennifer's points about that marketing message, that has to come from the top. It has to be cohesive throughout the company. It can't be something that the online sales counselor or any site agent is making up on the fly. It should be consistent across all communities. You know, this is something too, is that some builders, especially smaller builders, often let like their agents dictate what's going on, and it can cause a lot of difficulty in a crisis or a situation like this. The messaging really needs to be on point. And if it's not, if it's muddled because you're hearing a different thing from this community versus this community within the same builder, that's going to be a problem. So.
Yeah. And this is related to this next question that I wanted to ask, which is, what do you think OSCs need to be able to do especially well right now to ensure that the customer experience is positive?
Well, again, I think it goes back to auditing those digital campaigns that they put out there, our sales processes, because we have messaging in our lead follow-up. Online sales counselors, their main tool is their CRM. And their CRM is programmed in a certain way. And if they're not auditing those messages and going through, they can create a bad taste in people's mouths because they're not addressing what's going on right now. So you have two different groups of leads right now. You have your aged leads that are continually getting messages that you've pre-programmed from like a year or more ago. And then you have your brand new leads that are coming in. And so how are you messaging them to let them feel at ease with what your company is doing? So online sales counselors really need to look at all the messaging they're putting out there and making sure there's not something slipping through the cracks to older aged leads that are really not applicable right now.
Appropriate, right, right. Yeah, and to just touch on something that's a little near and dear to our hearts, the technology that feeds leads to online sales counselors sometimes can be something like a chatbot that facilitates an initial conversation with a visitor to your website. Have you seen that be of service in this time? We're seeing actually a return and an increase in the web traffic for many of our customers. It dipped certainly very early on, and it is now back above levels of March 1st, which means you've got a lot of leads coming in the door, or prospective leads coming in the door, that require some filtering. So are you finding that the technologies like chatbots are useful for OSCs right now?
Well, so personally, I don't have that many OSCs that actually have any chatbots set up. But from my feeling about a chatbot, especially for those online sales counselors that are overwhelmed with leads, having options gives you freedom and gives the buyer freedom, okay? And so not every buyer wants to talk to someone right away. I mean, we look at our introverts and our extroverts, right? Our extroverts may be starved for attention and want to talk to that online sales counselor right away so they can talk to a human, right? And so you need to make sure that you have those options clearly marked on your website. But then you have a lot of the millennials or a lot of people who are used to doing everything digitally for a while, and they don't want to interact with a human. And if you don't want to interact with a human, that's where I think that the chatbot can be a really strong tool that's available in the entire toolbox a builder has. So it's not the one and only, but it's a great tool to have. And especially if it can filter out, you know, oh, well, these are warranty questions. These are realtors trying to find out what's going on, that sort of stuff. So that the people who are really inquiring about actual homes right now, we want to make sure we're tending those leads as gold. You know, those people should be treated like kings and queens, right? Because they actually want to buy a house still, and they're not afraid of the current situation. So we want to be able to help them as and when they want that personal touch. So I think that in that sense, that would help.
Thank you.
Yes.
So once we've gone through the door of the branding and marketing and through the initial touch and discussion with an online sales counselor, and let's say we're kind of skipping over a lot of the stuff that might happen because we've talked about sales here in the past already. So we'll move from there straight to next, which is the sales experience itself. And I know both of you are play tangential roles to the sale, but I wondered if you had thoughts on, you know, virtual sales aren't new, virtual closings, if you will, aren't new, but you have to do them now to get any deals done. And that's part of the experience for the customer as well. The experience, if that experience isn't good, right? And wondering what you have, what perspective you might have, Jennifer, on what creates a quality sales experience or closing experience, what tools are used, what communication channels are essential there. What kind of thoughts do you have for the audience there?
Yeah, so I mean, adapting technology is key right now, and I won't say that all builders haven't adapted it. There's like Leah was saying, there's some that really have, and some that are just starting and at different phases. So adapting technology is absolutely key. And unfortunately, I really think it's been one of our Achilles heel of the industry, because we have a great history of sales in our industry, great people that have done it for many years, but a lot of people get a little bit pigeonholed in the way that they've done it. And so we really have to embrace technology in a completely new way and really get on board. We're kind of being forced to do it. So, you know, some of the best things that will make an experience is make sure that you can do a contract virtually. I think a lot of home builders, but not all, you know, are set up with DocuSign. You've got to be able to. I know in my other home builder experiences, we could take contracts with people, you know, moving across the country. But so that's like the first, I mean, if you can't do that, there's not a lot you're gonna be able to do not in person. But then again, thinking through how are you identifying your processes online? Is there a PDF? Is there a video? I think video's always been king for the last few years, but it's even more so. Have a weekly update from your leadership team talking about how it's going, how construction's going in the community, what you're doing to stay safe, how you're having weekly or daily meetings as an organization. Anything you can do to exude confidence in the buying cycle is going to help that virtual sales process. So in terms of tools that you might be using, again, video is key. The texting, yes, I am a huge fan of Atlas, but texting, having your sales team have a seat within the texting application so they can reach out to your customers. So, you know, there's chatting online is one form of that online texting, but also being able to reach out to your customers on the phone. Feeling comfortable with video, putting yourself on video, not blacking out your screen. This is something we're all getting used to do, right? So you have to be really transparent. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to be on video. If you're using other tools like BombBomb, I have some experience using that. Texting and emails, video through texting. All of those things are things you're going to have to do to make face-to-face contact, to make eye contact with that buyer. And not just emails. We will not get anywhere with just canned emails, marketing emails, but personal and really digging into what the customer wants. One other point to Leah's point is, again, we were kind of both talking about this, knowing your A, B's, and C's. What a great time to survey your customer and say, hey, this pandemic, do you want me to hold off on communication right now? Are you interested? Do you want to research? Do you want to use this time to research? Or do you have to buy? And identify them into micro segments. So how you're going to know how to communicate with them to a whole different level than we did before. And those that are like, I'm afraid, I lost my job, I don't know where I'm moving, I don't know, don't bother them right now. Now's not the time to send them messaging. So I think it's a merriment of the communication, the right tactic, but then digging into the wants and the needs of where each consumer is, if they're a prospect or they're already a lead, really knowing where they are and tailoring that message for all of them.
That's fantastic. I think maybe too, we have more time to be particular with each one, right? To truly give the customer service that they need.
And if I can add
actually, Leah, yeah, sorry, please.
Sorry, just adding something to that messaging. I think I love the survey idea, and I've brought this up before because I think it's a good way to take a temperature of all your sort of aged leads. And so asking people how they're doing, where they are, what you can do to help. And then when they give you feedback, like they are stressed or they are, you know, being able to send them a personalized message saying, hey, we're all in this together. I'm here for you. I might check in with you, you know, just next month, just to see how you're doing. I'm not, you know, I think it's not about right now about selling our homes, which it is. I mean, obviously we want to sell our homes, but it's about providing a support network and being there and not completely discontinuing messaging and waiting until everything blows over, but being there with calming ideas, even if it's like, it's kind of like the way we blog with ideas like for your kitchen and stuff. When you reach out to people and say, hey, how are you doing? What's been your favorite recipe since you've been in, you know, just something like that. A quick question, what's been your favorite recipe, or what of your hobbies have you picked up since you've been in quarantine? We want to know how you're doing and make sure you're still okay. Not because we're trying to sell you a house right now, but we want to make sure you're okay. So later on, when you're ready to start looking again, you know we're here for you.
Needs to be genuine, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It needs to be genuine.
Yeah. So let's keep moving. And there is a question that someone's raising about the OSC cadence of communication. And we'll come back to that as we move through. So I just want to highlight that we'll get to that. But as we move past the sale to the post-sale experience, right? Design center. My goodness, how do you go from being able to touch and feel the fabrics and the paint colors and all of the options to often, you know, that may not be as easy an option now, right? So and it's usually like one of the most exciting times for the buyer, right? And
how do we keep it fun?
How do we keep it fun? So what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so ironically, in the last 6 months, actually last year, in my former organization, we were talking about how do we create more of an online experience. And I think that's now what everybody's gonna have to figure out. So I would suggest, how do you, even if this is with a raw iPhone video, because not everybody has access to the fancy dancy agencies and bringing in film crews and all of that because of our restrictions. But as soon as you can bring in even just some video on what's your process, design process. The process is what it is. You're going to get to pick out your interior selections, and there's a process that each builder will go through. That stands, but then you have to address, well, how does it change? Can I come into your design center? Are you open for business? Can I touch and feel? This is such a touch and feel process. So I would say the first thing you should do is put a video online on your website, and then you can also send that through social media. You can send it through email. You can share that amongst every channel you have. But what's your process and how does that work? And what to expect. Now you can still get people excited by even growing what you're doing on social media and your social channels. So can you start to put up more inspiration boards on designer packages, or share some of the latest trends, share some of the fun that's happening out in the DIY atmosphere right now, and how HGTV is getting really creative, and how they're sharing design experiences. Get people prepared. So if you have someone that can come to a design center, they've looked through Pinterest boards, maybe they've worked with you and shared their boards, so they're spending less time. It's all about being exposed to germs less. So they're spending less time in your design center. They've had the orientation off site, and they're coming in really, ready. Another idea I've thought about is, how do we, again, are you giving people masks and gloves as they come in? While it's not comfortable, it's part of our new temporary, hopefully, norm. Thinking through that. If there are people that are just scared to death to leave, can you do a virtual Zoom meeting and maybe work with your vendors to get micro samples? So you're creating like a portable box of samples that then they can say, I picked out A, B, and C options. I need to touch them and feel them and look at them. And maybe they get their personalized box. And then think about, it's just another brainstorm idea, think about how you brand that experience. So safe and curated for the health and happiness of your home. Like, how do you really make that feel like it's bundled up, and this company thought about my design experience to keep me safe, giving me the option to do it virtually, giving me samples, giving me gloves, giving me all those different things to make it feel comfortable, but still try to have as much fun as you can.
Yeah, for sure. That's a real challenging part of it.
And here's something interesting is, even though obviously once you're getting to the phase of post-sale and all this stuff, the online sales counselor is not involved in these sort of things. I think that different departments in your company right now can take lessons from the online sales counselors and how they've often stepped through a process, because really well trained online sales counselors, really well put together programs have a process in place. And I think now more than ever, because we want a cohesive feeling for the buyer of safety and comfort while they're putting their home together, knowing exactly what we're not as, sales agents, let's face it, they wing it a lot when they're selling a home. So they don't step through a process, even though we've given them a 12-step selling process and things like that. Sales agents on site don't do that. And so if we are looking at everything after the sale and creating better, stronger processes that we follow, it helps us in situations like this and moving forward, so that we create a cohesive customer experience no matter what the situation. And so by looking at how online sales counselors have done that in the past and using some of those tools and ideas to create those processes for post-sale, I think you're gonna find some stronger overall company goals met.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I know we talked about that same point earlier. And I think as much as because they are that model, I also think as much as leadership teams within companies, bring in your inside sales team as you're refining your processes, because they're hearing firsthand the worries, the wants, and the needs, and where people are actually even getting stuck maybe on your websites, because then you're hearing that direct feedback so that more people can take action, in the process.
Yeah, that's great. And so once you've picked everything out, and then the home is being built, and then there are various walkthroughs, and again, we've touched on these in some other webinars, but obviously you've got the same need for virtual experience at the time of framing, and at the time of drywall, and at the time of ultimately final inspection and move-in, right? So are you seeing home builders doing more virtual work there as well?
I'm hearing different things, and I think that will be morphing over time. But I would say, again, all departments, whether in your construction, anybody that's customer facing, has to think about staying resourceful and keeping customer service top of mind, and don't be in a hurry to answer something you don't have the answer to. You know, we do want to be able to respond fast and quick online and give information, but if someone has a really delicate question around this whole thing, don't be in a hurry. Say, you know what, that's an interesting question. Let me take it back. Let me get an answer for you. But totally being resourceful. And I think that also means everybody being technology driven. So your superintendents and people that would normally do the walks of your home at the various stages, they may have to jump on a FaceTime, right? And walk them through the house and take pictures of things that are concerned. And how do you start to capture that information? You know, again, thinking through gloves and all of those different things. One idea that I actually thought about just the other day is, some builders have been talking about how do you create a client portal where you can start to collect all of your customers' journey. Well, you don't have time to make that overnight, but what we could do is start to create Dropboxes or file shares where you're starting to collect pictures and video and documents and Pinterest boards and all the things that the customer and all of these different salespeople are having the conversation. Start to create a library for them in something that's accessible today while you don't have time to create a portal overnight. It's just us being resourceful and thinking, how do I get the information, put it in a place for the customer, always be there for them, be service first versus over product. All departments down to construction even have to think about that. One last thing that I did hear is that some builders are doing things to keep customers feeling more comfortable with you know, germs and such, so having a protocol for saying our teams have, we have a protocol for taking temperatures every day. And these are things that we're doing for health checkups for our sales associates every day before you might even go and make an in-face appointment, or before you meet with the construction person, that all of these key departments are doing health checkups every day. It's just another layer of that confidence and thinking through what you're worried about as a customer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. In fact, I touched a bit with that. I'm sorry, Leah, what you've touched a bit on there is the idea that you've got other members of the team, you know, construction managers and others who might not normally have to do much with video or you know, technologies like that, that suddenly they need to be able to get comfortable with, right?
Yeah, and so one of my suggestions for that is figure out who your tech savvy people are in the company, and it's not just your IT team. Maybe and I've seen it in my history. You'll have a couple people in sales that are really good and really embrace it from the start. You may have someone in accounting, someone in a different department, and find out who your technology advocates can be and ask them to kind of be a beacon for, hey, so-and-so knows everything about FaceTime. So-and-so knows everything about BombBomb. So-and-so knows everything about our texting platform, and use them kind of as mini trainers within the company and great, you know, outreach support. You
might even imagine an OSC could be particularly good at that.
Oh, well, we already know that.
Right? Yeah, it seems like an avenue where they could particularly be of help. So we kind of walked ourselves through the journey, very high level, but across the whole stretch of it, looking at where there are potential hiccups for the experience. And one of the questions that one of our viewers is asking is about the OSC cadence of communication. So I want to circle back here. The follow-up email cadence that you might be using to help entice a customer in for a virtual tour. The question is, what do you recommend? What's the kind of recommended cadence there and that you're seeing, Leah, to try to engage customers after their initial inquiry?
So, I mean, we've always had, and I don't think it's changed much as far as, it's just the message has changed, not the frequency of the message necessarily, especially for those people that are first inquiring. I mean, if somebody's inquiring right now, you hear a lot of online sales counselors in different groups saying, should I be careful? Should I not be texting? Should I not be emailing as much? But the truth of the matter is, if somebody's inquiring right now, you want to be there on the forefront. And we always talk about different tools, you know, emails, phone calls, text messages, video emails. And often you hear that it takes 6 to 8 or 8 to 12 touch points in order to get someone to start even setting an appointment with you, to start communicating. And so you need to get those 6 to 8 to 12 touch points in. And I always have that cadence set up in the first 30 days of an online sales process for reaching out. And while those are set at certain times, like of course on day 0, you still want to be responding within 5 minutes or less. It's not, oh, I don't want to sound pushy. It's no, people, if they're inquiring, they still want that quick personalized response. So they're inquiring, you should be responding by email. You should be picking up the phone if they've provided a phone number and calling them. A day later, you should be sending that video email introducing yourself. So, you know, you're looking at, and cadence can change by market. So I don't want to say this is exactly how you should do it every single time, but you certainly shouldn't only be sending 3 canned marketing emails in 30 days, which unfortunately is what happens a lot of the time when I've done shops. So you need that personal touch, you need those personal responses.
Pardon me, it's an opportunity to get personal, it seems, again. It feels like that's a recurring theme. I mean, if you're going to be empathetic, you've got to be personal, right?
Yeah.
So, and that kind of takes me to this question, which is a little broader, but there's concerns that, you know, we could reopen the economy and then experience another recurrence, right, of the virus. So we could be in this in again, out again scenario, and it could make people nervous and concerned about whether or not a builder's ready to help them through this process. I mean, what are your thoughts on how we help customers and buyers feel calm and confident in what home builders are doing for them?
I might have different, we could probably both answer this. I'll just start with, again, I think that's where your leadership team has to come together and really reflect back on why you're here, what you're offering, is anything changing, and really just stand behind what that message is. And you have to rally around that. You know, we have to try to keep customers calm and let them know that the product's still there. We're still in business. I mean, it's not sugarcoating it. You're just going to say, like, we're still in business. We're not going away. The way we build is still the way we build. I think you have to exude confidence in the fact that we're not cutting corners. I mean, that's a big thing. People might think, are you cutting corners? You don't have as many trades working on my home. Is my home going to get built in the same time frame that you told me? And so they have to exude confidence that it's still business as usual in terms of how we build your home, who we involve in to build your home, but we do have to modify processes for the health and wellness of our associates and our customers. So it's clear communication on that you're in business, your processes for health have changed, but your process to build the home is still intact. And that really you're creating almost a communication insurance policy is the way I see it. And so builders are gonna have to say, builders should be saying, okay, how are we addressing it now? How are we going to address when everything, now we're in we've got all this backlog of all kinds of craziness. Customers are waiting. There's a lot of different backlog throughout departments. How do we then move forward? And then what if we are back in the same situation 4 months from now in the fall, 5 months from now in the fall? And so they need to be revisiting, learning from the processes, and then letting their customers know that even if this happens again, it's still business as usual. And this is our process. It's recanting what you know, you know about what you do. And that has to come from the top up. That cannot be, as one of you mentioned before, diluted from different people. Everyone has to say, this is how we address this as a company and how we will continue to address it as a company.
Yeah, that's great. Thoughts there, Leah?
And I think, that what we're putting in place now, all these tools, all these digital tools, like offering virtual tour, virtual appointments, creating a foundation, really setting that up, shouldn't go away just because, we're all healthier again. Right. It should always be something, that's now permanently built into the process. It's an advancement. And, if you look at the car companies out there, they have been for years and years now, I mean, decades, letting you customize your car online. And now they're like delivering them to your home. Mm-hmm. So that shouldn't go away. This whole process that we're creating right now because of coronavirus should be built into our systems and be a part of our company cultures moving forward.
Yeah.
And they should be valued just as much as an in-person appointment. A virtual appointment should be just as important as an in-person appointment, and it may be considered a stepping stone, or we may start selling our homes completely online. But one last important point I want to make is that online sales counselors, like I said at the beginning, they're those appointment setters. They're not those salespeople. Just because we go to a virtual method of doing this doesn't mean salespeople will disappear. It's still an integral part of selling a home because they have a whole different skill set than what your online sales counselor has.
Yeah, very helpful. So to wrap up our conversation today, what's each of you, your respective top sort of recommendation for how home builders could improve the buyer's experience today in this environment? What are the big impact areas that if you were going to take away from this webinar, go do X, what would that be from each of you? Jennifer, would you like to start?
Sure. Again, the big thing is communication is key. Getting leadership to rally around and tell everyone, the masses, what that message is, and just make sure everybody knows it. It's very concrete. Making sure that technology is your best friend and really pulling off the Band-Aid of, ow, I don't want to do it. And embracing all of the many tools out there from, and everything from the texting to the virtual tours to, like Focus 360 does some great tours. There's Atlas, Novi Home. There's all sorts of different tools out there for making your sales offices more virtual, and really combining what you do in and outside of this pandemic, because everything you're doing and learning today will just be that much of a bigger tool in your toolbox moving forward. So I would say make sure you're advancing the technology, you're getting the right partners on board. There's a lot of different partners that specialize in all these different areas. Right now, use some of this time quickly to start researching that and asking other people what they recommend. And then I would say check in with your customer more, acknowledging their pain points. It is not about sale. It's about service. And if you keep that top of mind, that is, white glove service. It's going to take on a whole nother meeting, like literally, the white gloves or surgical gloves that we're all wearing. It's going to take on a whole different meaning of us caring for the customer, but also being cautious, in this pandemic time.
Great. Leah.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest takeaway right now is to create that that personal image on your website. Because right now, if you look at so many builder websites across the board, across the country, they have wonderful, beautiful pictures, but there's no element, and even if they have pictures of families, there's no element of their personal, who they are. And by having that, if you do have an online sales counselor and their face isn't there, you need to put their face there. You need to start putting their videos all over your website to create that personal touch. If you don't have an online sales counselor, really thinking about that as a foundation of something you need to build moving forward. And scalability, I know a lot of the smaller builders out there say we can't put this in place. We don't have the resources to put an online sales counselor. But if you're selling, I've trained people to selling 40, 50 homes or more. If you're selling 40 or 50 homes, you can start thinking about how you implement this concierge service, because that really is what an online sales counselor is a concierge to help with that digital process that we're just going to see. We can't keep burying our head in the sand. Like I said, they've been around 2 decades. They're not going away. It's not bad. So
that's great. That's really fantastic. Thank you. Some great insights there from both of you. Thank you so much. That is all the time we have for today. I do want to thank Jennifer Cooper and Leah Fellows very much for joining me today. And for those of you who are listening in, if there are questions you'd like to ask, feel free to throw them in the Q&A, and we'd be happy to continue beyond our 45 minutes. But from Atlas RTX, we'd be also very happy to answer questions that you might have about our technology and how that can be of help to your business. You can reach out to us at success@atlasrtx.com for some information there. And please do plan to join us again next week at the same time for our next webinar for the home builder industry. One of our panelists for next week is Kim Ross, who's the Vice President of Marketing for Woodside Homes. And we'll be talking about the rapid pivot that they and other home builders have had to make in their customer communications. So more great insights there to share with all of you. So again, Thank you all very much for being here. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.